Hello, good afternoon. My name is Chen Huang. Welcome to my individual capstone project presentation. My title is called GM, General Motors at a Crossroads. So first of all, I want to spend a few minutes on explaining why I choose GM as my target company. I think GM is very important for the US economy, of course for some states in particular. For example, GM employs tens of thousands of workers in the United States. And secondly, of course, strategic management is important for any companies out there. But I think for GM, a company with more than a century's history, it's especially important for reasons that I will explain in my presentation. And thirdly, I have a personal connection to GM. My wife worked for GM, and then we lived in Flint, Michigan for a while. So that's the reasons that why I choose General Motors. Because I only have 15 minutes, so I have to go fast. Let's jump right in. I divide my presentation into 5 sections: historical context, external analysis, internal analysis, strategy formation, and conclusion. Historical context. GM's current mission statement says, "We envision a future of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion, and we have committed ourselves to leading the way toward this future." I think this 3-0 mission statement is a very good one. Domestically and internationally, GM has many competitors. Domestically, of course, we're looking at Ford, Fiat, Chrysler, and Tesla. And then internationally, we look at European car manufacturers, Asian car manufacturers from Toyota, Honda to Volvo, and many others. Key stakeholders, we all know this famous saying that what is good for General Motors is good for the country. So internally, GM has its employees and managers as its stakeholders, and externally, its shareholders, customers, dealers, and the community at large are all GM's stakeholders. So next session, we're going to do external analysis. First of all, with the PSTL or PESTEL model. Very quickly, the model look at political factors, economic factors, social cultural factors, technological factors, ecological factors, and legal factors. One of the key political factors is that GM was bailed out by the federal government, as we know, a couple years ago. So that could be a positive as well as negative to the reputation and image of GM. Economic factors, economy is doing generally well, so people are opening their wallet and buying cars and SUVs and trucks. Social cultural factors, technological factors here. One of the key factors, of course, is the self-driving technology and electric cars and related technologies. Most GM cars run on fossil fuels, so that's a big ecological factor or impact on the environment. Legal factors, similarly, both domestically and internationally, GM is facing a tougher, legal environment in terms of emission and air pollution. Porter's 5 forces model, I think threat of new entrants is medium, threat of substitute products or services is high, bargaining power of buyers is high, bargaining power of suppliers is medium, and rivalry among existing competitors is high. Key driving forces, I think technology, especially self-driving technology, electric cars, customer demand. On the one hand, customers still want big trucks, SUVs, crossovers. On the other hand, customers want self-driving technology, want electric cars. Labor relations, as we mentioned, is a big factor. Next section, internal analysis. Start with some financial charts. Here I only put one here. That's the last 5 years from 2014 to 2018, GM's revenue and net income. As you can see, one of the most alarming trend is that in the last 5 years, GM's revenue has been steadily going down. And then, of course, in 2017, during the Great Recession, GM had big losses and went through the bankruptcy and was saved or rescued, bailed out by the federal government. The VRIO analysis will look at the key resources and capabilities, and then look at whether they are valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-sustainable, organized to exploit, and then their impact on competitive advantage. I just want to point out here that I think GM has key resources and capacities in intellectual properties on electric cars, self-driving cars, technology, and mobile business, mainly ride-sharing business. However, those are valuable, rare, and inimitable and non-sustainable, but GM's currently is not organized to exploit those resources yet. So they are kind of unused competitive advantage. The ERRC analysis, I suggest that GM should eliminate combustion engine only sedans, should reduce combustion engine only SUVs and crossovers, raise electric vehicles, and create self-driving cars. Balanced scorecard, the first perspective, financial perspectives. Very quickly, I look at objectives of return on asset, gross margin, and shareholder value. On the aspect of customer perspective, I look at market share and customer satisfaction. For the aspect or perspective of internal business process, I look at internal business process and innovation in internal business process. For the objective or perspective of learning and growth, I look at reskill employees, enhance information technology and system, and align organizational procedures and routines. I think the last one especially is very important. The last section on strategy formation. GM's current diversification strategy. Some success in geographical diversification, especially in China and Brazil. So for example, GM currently has roughly 70% of the US market share. But then in China, it has about 14%. But because China is the world's largest car market, that GM is actually selling more cars in China than in any other single market. And then in Brazil, similarly, GM has about 70% of the market share. In terms of product diversification, however, GM has made little progress. For example, this chart shows in the US market, GM is still heavily dependent on cars, trucks, and crossovers. And in fact, GM has more dependence on the trucks because it has roughly a quarter of the US trucks market. International strategy, GM has a transnational strategy. It has 3 joint ventures in China, which I think is a good strategy to have access to the market, also help GM navigate some of the legal legislative issues in China. Finally, in conclusion, I think GM is at a crucial moment. It has to make tough decisions and choices to change from a cost leadership to a differentiation-based strategy. As Porter pointed out, a company can outperform rivals only if it can establish a difference that it can preserve. So over the years, I think GM has tried to improve on its operational effectiveness, but has not been very successful in that department. And GM really need to differentiate itself. So how can GM do that? I think GM should build organizational ambidexterity to achieve differentiation. And recent development especially have shown that GM is moving in the right direction. So for example, GM is doing the right thing by diverting resources from unprofitable operations to the battleground of electric cars and self-driving cars. So for example, GM shed its operations in India, Western Europe, and Russia in recent years to free up resources to be invested in electric cars and self-driving cars. GM's road forward to build differentiation through organizational ambidexterity, however, is not that clear. So for example, after the recent UAW strike, GM, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler has committed to invest $23 billion in U.S. facilities and to create or retain 25,000 jobs for the next 4 years. So the question is whether GM will spend those resources on traditional car manufacturing to satisfy the demand of UAW, or to retool and repurpose for electric cars and autonomous driving cars remain to be seen. That's why I think GM is at a crossroad. GM has to make tough choices. It has to adjust its operational structure, internal structure, to build organizational ambidexterity to achieve the goal of differentiation. Finally, my reference list. All right, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for watching, and please feel free to give me feedbacks, especially for that one classmate who is going to critique my presentation and content. Thank you in advance. Thank you. Bye-bye.